I wasn't trying to prove you wrong. I just stopped believing you were right, and that was your final mistake. Let's get one thing straight before we even begin. They weren't just doubting you, they were hoping you'd fail. Silently, gleefully, plotting behind fake smiles and weak compliments, watching you struggle like it was sport. Betting you'd stay stuck while they stood on the sidelines, waiting to see you tap out. But guess what? You didn't fold, you didn't disappear, you pulled it off. And now, they're standing there looking real stupid, mouths wide open, wondering how the hell you made it out of the fire without a single burn mark. See, that's what happens when people judge you based on the chapter they walked in on. They thought you were finished, that you'd always be the underdog, always playing small, always stuck in the mess they left you in. But you were never broken. You were building. You didn't need their help. You didn't need their belief. You just needed time. And now time has delivered its punchline, with you as the plot twist they never saw coming. Don't forget to pay this message forward. If this is waking something up in you, if you feel this message in your bones, like, subscribe, and drop the number 77 in the comments. That's how we spread this truth, this fire, to others still crawling through the mud while the world bets against them. It's our job to shine the light for those still searching for theirs. Let's get into it. This story, it's not about revenge. It's about redirection. It's not about proving people wrong. It's about proving to yourself that they were never right, that their doubts, their side eyes, their cheap talk had nothing to do with your worth. You were chosen the whole damn time. They just couldn't see it through their own insecurities. You didn't get lucky, you got focused. While they were out running their mouths, you were running laps around their limitations. While they were gossiping in circles, you were building something real, quietly, strategically. And now you've stepped out the shadows, and it's messing with them on a spiritual level. Because people don't know how to act when the one they counted out becomes the one they can't ignore. You know the type. They loved it when you were easy to control, when you played nice, when your light was dim enough to make theirs feel bright. But the moment you started owning your value, the moment you pulled away, focused up, and leveled out, oh, now you're acting different. Now you're too much. Nah, you're just not for sale anymore. And that's why they're shook. Your glow-up didn't come with noise. It came with silence, with strategy, with long nights no one saw, with setbacks that didn't stop you, just sharpened you. You flipped the switch and changed the narrative. And now they're stuck trying to rewrite a story that was never theirs to begin with. Now they're watching you walk into rooms they never thought you'd enter. Watch you get opportunities they swore weren't for people like you. They're checking your every move like it's breaking news, still refreshing your page, still hoping this success thing is just a phase. But deep down, they know it's not. It's permanent. Because this wasn't a fluke. This wasn't luck. This was earned. Every scar, every loss, every moment you were doubted and still chose to rise, that's what built this. That's what made you unstoppable. That's why the same people who once laughed are now speechless. And here's what really stings for them. You didn't just survive, you transformed. You didn't just do better, you became a version of yourself that no one can reach unless you allow it. That's what really hurts. Not that you won, but that you won without them. You moved on. And they're stuck in rewind, still trying to make sense of how someone they looked down on became someone they now look up to. It's funny how fast opinions change when results start speaking louder than words. Let them stare, let them study, let them gossip, because at the end of the day, you did that. You made it through the dirt, the doubt, the disrespect. And you came out cleaner than ever. You didn't need to clap back. Your success clapped for you. This isn't just your glow up. This is your arrival. So keep walking like the path belongs to you, because it does. Keep rising like it's your birthright, because it is. And keep shocking them, because they were never supposed to understand your power anyway. You pulled it off. And now they're sitting in silence, looking real stupid, wishing they had bet with you instead of against you. You're the proof that the universe doesn't play favorites. It just honors the ones who don't quit. And now that we've ripped the mask off their fake support and quiet hate, let's really break this down, step by step. Because if you're the chosen one they never saw coming, you already feel it deep. This message is you. So don't just watch, lock in. Drop the number 77 in the comments if you're done being overlooked and ready to own the fact that you left them stunned. Like and subscribe if you're not just surviving. You're flipping the script. This is the part where the real ones stay. Let's get into it. They didn't see it coming. Now they can't unsee it. Number 1. They thought you were lost, but you were quietly drafting their defeat. Don't mistake my silence for weakness. That was me loading the blueprint while you were busy running your mouth. Now I'm building what you swore I never would. Let's rip the mask off this illusion. They never actually saw you. They watched your stillness, your silence, your absence from their noisy world, and assumed you had nothing going on. No progress, no plan, no power, just floating, stuck, maybe even broken. But let's be real, they weren't observing you out of concern. They were watching, hoping to catch your downfall in slow motion. But you weren't falling, you were forging. While they were shouting for attention, faking wins, and chasing every shallow trend that made them feel seen, you were tucked away in the shadows, crafting something permanent. You weren't playing for applause, you were playing for legacy. And that's what they never understood. Because here's what they forgot. The most dangerous people are the ones who work in silence. The ones who don't need to broadcast their every move. The ones who go ghost, not because they're lost, but because they're building the fortress that no one will be able to knock down later. They called you lazy, quiet, passive. Some even whispered that you gave up. But you were never the loud laborer. You were the silent architect, drawing the lines, laying the bricks, running your fingers along the cracks of your past so you could seal them for good. While they were busy trying to win the crowd, you were busy preparing to own the damn arena. You didn't compete. You didn't clap back. You didn't explain your silence, because deep down you knew something they didn't. Nothing screams louder than results. You didn't want fast fame or empty praise. You wanted foundation, and that's why you stopped moving like you had something to prove. You stopped sprinting with the pack, and instead you studied. You took apart every broken pattern. You pulled out every lie that kept you playing small. You did the work, the real, gritty, lonely kind, and it shows. So now they're the ones speechless. The same ones who called you slow are now tripping over their words, trying to figure out how you got ahead. The same ones who counted you out are now refreshing your page, whispering your name like a prayer they regret ignoring. But here's the kicker. They never expected you to finish anything. They were counting on you to fall apart, not rise up. You were the quiet one, the one who didn't brag, the one who didn't fight back. And now they're shook because your silence birthed a storm. They never saw the blueprint because they were too busy mocking the construction site. You weren't building just to flex. You were building to last. You laid bricks made of pain, cemented in lessons, reinforced with every time you had to clap for others while no one clapped for you. That foundation, they couldn't shake it if they tried. And the worst part for them, you never needed to step on anyone to rise. You didn't drag anyone down. You didn't lie, cheat, or manipulate to get ahead. You just focused. You sat with your discomfort. You grew in the dark. and now your glow is blinding. They don't know how to handle it. Because when someone like you wins, it forces them to ask the one question they've avoided. What the hell have I been doing with my time? That's why your success feels like a slap to them, because you didn't just make it, you did it with no noise, no drama, no announcements. You left the game, came back with your own board, and now they're begging to understand the rules you rewrote. You're not lucky, you're not faking it, you're not new, you've just evolved in silence, and now you're undeniable. This is why people fear the quiet ones, because quiet means control, quiet means patience, quiet means you're not wasting energy proving yourself, you're investing it in becoming something they can't touch. You never needed a crowd, you needed a moment. Now the moment's here, and they're not laughing anymore. They're confused, they're scrambling, they're exposed, because you didn't just show up, you shut it down. Let them gossip, let them guess, let them spin wild theories about how you pulled it off. You owe no explanations. Your work speaks, your presence speaks. Your rise is the only response they'll ever get. And the best part? You're just getting started. Because while they were busy underestimating you, you were quietly becoming the blueprint. Now they're out here trying to replicate your steps without realizing you were never following a path. You were drawing one, and now the world's walking on what you built. Number 2, you weren't trying to prove them wrong. You were too busy proving the universe right. They thought they were the test. Truth is, they were just background noise while you answered a call they were never meant to hear. They really believed your drive was about them, that you woke up every day trying to make a statement, that every step forward, every win, every new level was your way of clapping back, of saying, "Look at me now." That your growth was one big revenge tour. That was their first mistake. Their egos couldn't imagine that you were moving without them in mind, that you didn't need their doubt, their shade, or their silence to fuel you, that your story had absolutely nothing to do with proving them wrong, and everything to do with proving the universe right. You weren't reacting, you were responding, not to the noise, but to something deeper, something written into your being before they even knew your name. You didn't rise out of spite, you rose out of alignment. While they were busy whispering, watching, and waiting for you to crack, you were being refined, not for revenge, but for purpose. They thought you were emotional, they thought you were dramatic. They thought one more comment would break you. Instead, it built you. Because you weren't running on emotions, you were running on knowing. You knew what they didn't, that the pain was producing power, that the rejection was redirection, that the chaos around you wasn't a sign to stop, it was a sign to push harder. Every delay, a setup, every no, just a detour to the real prize. You were playing chess while they were busy gossiping over checkers. And now that you've made it through, now that the silence, the sacrifice, the solitude has birthed something unstoppable, they're confused because they can't track your strength. It didn't come from attention. It didn't come from applause. You didn't need a stage. You just needed the space to become. You didn't blow up to get noticed. You leveled up because you listened, not to them, but to the whisper that called you even when you felt unworthy, to the nudge in your gut that said, "Keep going, you were made for more," to the signs, the patterns, the soul screams that said, "You are not crazy for dreaming bigger." You weren't chasing validation, you were chasing vision. And the difference, it shows. Because now you walk differently, you speak with clarity, you move with precision, and they feel it. They feel it every time you enter a room and don't shrink, every time you succeed without needing a crowd, every time you set a boundary and don't flinch. Your presence alone makes them uncomfortable now. Not because you're arrogant, but because you've become something they can't manipulate. You're not fueled by proving them wrong. You're powered by being right with yourself. They can't compute that. They can't label it. And they sure as hell can't compete with it. Because here's the truth they'll never admit. They expected a collapse. You gave them a masterpiece. They expected anger. You gave them elevation. They expected petty. You gave them peace. And that's what makes them squirm. Because it would have been easier for them if you had clapped back, if you'd played small, snapped, lost your cool. That would have justified their behavior. That would have given them something to point to and say, "See? Told you." But you didn't. You rose in silence. You won with grace. You disappeared and rebuilt. And now your glow is blinding. They can't trace your strength back to anything they understand. Not fame, not followers, not outside validation. Your power came from within, and that terrifies them. Because when someone moves with purpose instead of permission, they become unpredictable. And when someone stops asking, "Do they believe in me?" and starts declaring, "I believe in me," they become unshakable. You're not here to clap back. You're here to continue. They weren't your reason. They were your reminder of everything you never want to be, of everything you had to shed to become who you are now. You didn't do this because of them. You did this in spite of them. So now they sit in silence, trying to figure out how someone they counted out is leading the charge. Trying to understand how you stayed kind, stayed grounded, stayed focused, while they threw dirt on your name. Here's how. You knew the truth. You knew your time was coming, and you didn't need them to see it. Because it wasn't about them seeing, it was about you becoming, and you became everything they swore you'd never be. So let them keep guessing, let them keep watching, let them live in that quiet confusion of trying to figure out how you got here without them. Meanwhile, you'll keep moving, keep rising, keep walking in the direction that was always yours. You're not loud because you don't need to be. You're not flashy because your presence says it all. You're not chasing anyone's approval because you already arrived. You weren't proving them wrong. You were just living in a way that proves the universe never lied about you. Number 3, they bet on your failure like it was comedy. Now they're the joke. They laughed at the grind until the grind made you unrecognizable. Now the punchline is their regret. Let's talk about the part they hope you forget, the way they mocked you, the way they whispered, smirked, and used your name as entertainment, like your dreams were delusions, like your effort was a waste. They turned your ambition into a joke and passed your name around like cheap gossip. And every time you walked away, they laughed just loud enough for you to hear it on the way out. But here's what they didn't know. They weren't hurting you. They were hardening you. They weren't stopping you. They were sharpening you. Because while they were playing class clowns in your story, you were putting in quiet, dangerous work. You were investing in mastery while they wasted time performing for attention that doesn't even matter now. You studied when no one clapped. You sacrificed when no one believed. You kept showing up when the results were invisible and the respect was non-existent. And now, you've built something solid. You've mastered skills, learned discipline, found clarity. Your focus became a fortress, and their mockery, just bricks you stacked into motivation. While they were busy running their mouths, you were building your name, a name that now holds weight in rooms they still dream of entering. They thought they were breaking you, but all they did was add fuel to a fire they couldn't contain. You didn't rant. You didn't scream for justice. You didn't try to win their respect. You just kept growing. And now that growth is screaming for you, now your wins are so loud they drown out the noise. The same people who laughed behind your back are sitting in stunned silence, watching you shine. Not because you embarrass them, but because they played themselves. They invested in mockery like it was a stock, and it crashed the moment you cashed in on your potential. They tried to turn your dreams into a meme. Now you've turned their silence into a museum of regrets. But you didn't stoop to their level. You didn't get petty. You didn't fight small. You rose big. You made success the sermon. You made results the revenge. You didn't lower your frequency to match their noise. You turned up your discipline and let them feel the distance. Because you were never here for their applause. You were here for the long game. And now that you're winning, it's clear who wasted their time talking and who spent their time training. And here's the real punchline. They laughed at you while you were learning, but now they can't even understand the language you speak. You don't move the way you used to. You don't even respond. Your growth has outpaced their relevance. You let them laugh, and then you outgrew the room. They thought you were the joke. Now they can't make eye contact, because it was never personal for you. It was purposeful. So no, you didn't need to clap back. You became the clap. You became the moment, the proof, the plot twist. And now they sit in the corner of your success story, quietly haunted by the sound of their own laughter echoing back at them. Because you flipped the story, and they'll never be able to rewrite it. Number 4. They wrote you off too soon. Now you're the plot twist that rewrote the whole story. They thought they had you figured out, thought they could skip to your ending, but you flipped the script mid-scene, and now they're stuck reading a story they were never smart enough to write. Let's talk about it, because this part hurts the most for them. They thought they knew you, had your entire journey boxed up and labeled. In their minds, you were predictable, easy to define, easy to overlook. You were the background noise to their main character energy, the cautionary tale, the almost, the one who was always reaching but never arriving. They had the audacity to cast you as the failure in a movie you never auditioned for. And the sickest part, they got comfortable watching you lose, comfortable keeping your name in their mouth, like a storyline they thought they controlled. They whispered predictions about your life like it was gospel. They'll never make it. Still stuck in the same place. Tried and failed again. But while they were busy writing your obituary, you were revising the whole book. Because they forgot one thing. You had the pen the whole damn time. You weren't stuck. You were strategizing. You weren't behind. You were rebuilding. And when the time was right, you tore up their script, tossed their version of your story in the fire, and came back as the plot twist that shook their entire narrative. You didn't just step off their stage. You built your own theater, new cast, new rules, new story, and suddenly everything they thought they understood didn't add up. You went from background noise to main attraction, from side character to the one driving the entire story forward, from who to wait, how. Now your name is in rooms they never imagined for you. Your moves are shifting dynamics they thought were set in stone. The same people who once rolled their eyes at your ambition are now watching in stunned silence as the person they wrote off becomes the person they can't ignore. What really stings isn't just that you rose, it's that you did it without them, without their support, without their approval, without asking for a single damn thing. You walked away from their narrative and wrote your own ending. With no co-authors, they're confused. Because this wasn't how it was supposed to go. You were supposed to stay stuck, stay small, stay bitter. You were supposed to break down when they cut you off, fade away when they pulled back, shrink when they laughed. But instead, you expanded. You became the twist, the unplanned, unpredictable, undeniable change in their safe little storyline. You went off script, off grid, off their radar, and returned as a whole different force. Now they're flipping back through the pages of your life, trying to figure out where they got it wrong. Here's where. They assumed they had the authority to define your future. But they never did. They never even understood your character. You weren't built to play it safe. You weren't made to be someone's supporting role. You weren't born to survive inside a storyline written by people who never loved your depth. So you stopped playing the role, and you became the author. That's why they're rattled, because they can't place you anymore, can't predict your next move, can't manipulate the scene. You don't move the way you used to. You don't chase closure. You don't explain your glow. You just exist, boldly, fully, and unbothered. They don't know whether to respect you or fear you now, because your success feels like a rebuke, like a reminder of every time they misjudged you. But you didn't succeed to hurt them. You succeeded in spite of them. And now they're trapped in a story that no longer makes sense. They don't have a role in this next chapter. Their version of you has expired, and this version doesn't need validation from characters who never understood the plot. You weren't background. You were the disruption, the shift, the thunderstorm that hit in the middle of their forecasted sunshine. You were never meant to be understood. You were meant to be watched as you rise through every scene they thought would bury you. Let them reread your past. They'll never understand how the underdog they mocked became the storm they didn't see coming. And that's exactly what makes you the plot twist of a lifetime. Number 5. They laughed at the fire. Now you're flying straight out the flames. They cracked jokes while you suffered. Now they flinch when your name is mentioned because you turned every laugh into liftoff. They mocked your pain like it was a skit. Your heartbreaks became their entertainment. Your setbacks, their favorite punchlines. They passed your lowest moments around like gossip, turned your tears into memes, and your silence into something they thought meant weakness. They didn't see struggle, they saw a show. But while they were laughing, you were rising, quietly, brutally, relentlessly. Because here's what they never understood. You weren't stuck. You were loading. You weren't drowning. You were distilling. Every joke, every whisper, every shady look became fuel. And baby, you burned hot. You didn't just survive the mockery. You converted it. You took that pain and turned it into propulsion, like rocket fuel, like launch pads, like jet engines built from ashes. They laughed at your breaking point. But that was the exact moment you started becoming unbreakable. Think about every great name that ever scared the world. They laughed at Muhammad Ali. They mocked Oprah when she got fired. They called Nelson Mandela a nobody in a cell. Every one of them was a joke, until they weren't. That's what you are now, a walking contradiction to every lie they told about you. They expected you to stay in the dirt, but instead of laying there, you planted yourself. And now you're blooming in ways they can't explain, can't reach, can't duplicate. What burns them most isn't just that you made it. It's that you made it without giving them the satisfaction of clapping back. Your silence was louder than their noise. Your glow-up? A public service announcement. Now they look foolish, not because you exposed them, but because they bet against someone who was quietly building wings in the fire. They laughed at the ashes. Now they look up and see you flying. Number 6. They swore you'd fall. Now your rise makes their predictions look like a joke. They said you'd fail with full confidence. Now they avoid eye contact with the future you became. They thought they had you all figured out, spoke about your future like it was already decided, labeled you with cheap words, boxed you in with low expectations, told others they'll never make it, with that smug little smirk that only shows up when someone's betting on your downfall. They didn't just doubt you, they dismissed you, with certainty, with pride, like they knew your limits better than you knew your own strength. But here's what they didn't know. Their predictions were built on shallow thinking. They weren't studying you. They were projecting their own fears, their own failures, their own limitations. They judged you based on where you were, not where you were going. They didn't understand that silence doesn't mean weakness, and struggle doesn't mean stuck. So you kept working, kept growing, kept building in the dark while they whispered over your name. And now your presence makes them uncomfortable because it proves them wrong in high definition. They didn't just miss the mark, they missed the whole narrative, and now they can't rewrite it. The receipts are real, the results are loud, and their small-minded "you'll never be more than" speeches have aged like milk. You weren't a long shot, you were the plot twist, you were the power move they never saw coming. And now, every room you walk into, every door that opens, every time your name pops up in spaces they swore you'd never reach, it stings them, because the vision they had for your life just got steamrolled by your reality. They can't hide from it, can't spin it, because you're standing in the success they said was impossible. So no, you didn't just rise, you shattered their fantasy. Their predictions weren't just wrong, they were embarrassing, because while they were scripting your ceiling, you were tearing the roof off the place. Number 7, they thought influence was clout. You showed them it was impact. They chased the crowd. You moved the room. Now they're loud, and you're legendary. They thought influence was about being seen, being loud, being everywhere, so they chased numbers, clout, and fake applause like it meant something, posting for attention, performing for approval, screaming into the void just to be relevant for 5 seconds longer. Meanwhile, you were quiet, focused, unbothered. While they ran after followers, you were chasing depth. While they studied trends, you studied your own growth. While they craved validation, you were crafting value. And now the difference shows, because when they walk in, people scroll past. When you enter a space, everything shifts. That's real presence. That's gravity. You didn't need to shout. You whispered, and the room leaned in, because you weren't trying to be seen, you were trying to mean something. And now, you do. On a level they can't duplicate. You didn't go viral, you went vital. There's a difference. Influence isn't popularity, it's power. And not power that comes from attention, but power that comes from authenticity. They don't get that. They're addicted to optics, to perception, to the dopamine hit of digital claps from strangers who forget them by tomorrow. But you're unforgettable, because you made people feel something real, because you left a mark, not just on screens, but on souls. They tried to drown you out with noise, but presence isn't noise, it's weight. And now they're realizing, too late, that the spotlight they worship doesn't mean much when the crowd leaves, that followers can't fill the silence when influence fades, that real power doesn't scream, it stands. You were never flashy. You were foundational, and that's why they remember you, while they fade into the background of their own performance. So let them chase what's temporary. You've become what's timeless. Number 8. They bet against a force they couldn't measure. Now they're watching you do the impossible. They thought they were betting against a person. What they didn't realize is they were betting against something built in silence, tested in fire, and backed by forever. They saw your struggle and thought it meant defeat. They judged your pace, your process, your quiet grind. To them, it looked slow, unimpressive, fragile. They thought it came down to talent, charm, or luck. And because they couldn't see yours, they assumed you had none. But what they missed, what they couldn't measure, was the force behind it all. This wasn't about talent. This was about purpose. You weren't trying to make it. You were becoming, brick by brick, trial by trial. You weren't self-made. You were spirit-built. Everything they mocked was part of a blueprint they were never meant to understand. They couldn't see the roots, only the dirt. Couldn't see the design, only the delay. Couldn't see the fire, only the ashes. But the universe, it knew, and it backed you completely. You weren't being ignored, you were being fortified. Every delay was divine timing, every loss was redirection, every no was a training ground for the kind of strength that can't be shaken, bought, or faked. So when they bet against you, they weren't betting against a person. They were betting against something eternal. And now they're stunned, shaken, silenced. Because you're still standing, still rising, still breaking limits they swore would break you. They thought your quiet seasons meant weakness. But it was in those seasons that you became dangerous. You didn't just survive, you aligned. You didn't just hustle, you awakened. You didn't just learn to fight, you learned to flow with something much bigger than them, bigger than ego, bigger than the small minds that tried to keep you boxed in. What they thought was weakness was wisdom. What they called soft was sacred. They bet against a soul backed by eternity, and now they're watching the impossible unfold like clockwork. Let them be stunned. Let them choke on the silence you left behind. Because this was never about proving them wrong. It was about proving the calling right. And now the calling speaks loud and clear. Through you. Number 9. They laughed at your bank account, not realizing you were building a kingdom in silence. They thought you were broke because you didn't flaunt. But wealth isn't always loud, and now you live where their mindset could never afford. They looked at your clothes, your car, your quiet lifestyle, and they laughed, judged you by what you didn't show. No designer, no flex, no flash. To them, you looked like struggle, like lack, like someone who wasn't making it, because they've been trained to think loud equals success. That money is a performance, not a plan. But you weren't broke. You were invested. While they spent for validation, you saved for transformation. While they flexed for strangers, you built in silence. While they maxed out cards trying to impress, you maxed out discipline, investing time, energy, and soul into a vision they couldn't even begin to see. You weren't rich in status. You were rich in strategy. You played the long game, learned the rules, broke cycles, read the books, watched the patterns, took losses in private so you could earn power in peace. You chose delay over instant gratification. And now, that patience is paying interest. They bought followers. You built foundation. They rented attention. You purchased freedom in full. Now the tables have turned. They're drowning in debt. You're wealthy in wisdom. You don't just own things. You own yourself. You own your time, your peace, your growth. The things they can't flex because they were too busy chasing the illusion while you were crafting the infrastructure. They can't afford the level you've reached, not because of money, but because their mindset is bankrupt. They laughed when you looked behind. Now they're quiet while you lead from ahead. You didn't just build wealth, you became valuable. And that can't be bought. That has to be earned. And baby, you earned every cent of the life you're living now. Number 10. You didn't play their game. You built the damn arena. While they fought for a seat at the table, you built a new table, wrote the menu, and now they're asking if there's room. They were busy scrambling for attention, loud, messy, desperate to be noticed, jumping from trend to trend, copying, competing, faking confidence just to look like they were ahead. They wanted followers, applause, validation, fast. But all you wanted was freedom. So you did something different. You stopped running their race and started building your own track. You didn't scream for the spotlight. You moved in silence, stacking bricks while they threw shade. They fought each other for scraps. You studied. You stayed grounded. You didn't care to beat them. You came to outlast them. Because you weren't interested in winning their game. You were crafting a whole new lane. And now, they're lost, trying to keep up with something they don't even understand. They played checkers. You were building a kingdom. They went viral. You went vital. They trended. You transformed. And now that the foundation is solid, now that the vision is alive, they're standing in line outside doors you built with your bare hands. They never expected that. They thought you were passive because you didn't clap back, thought you were soft because you didn't fight dirty, thought you were falling behind because you weren't loud. But you weren't behind. You were unbothered. And now, you're untouchable. You didn't compete. You conquered. Without shortcuts, without gossip, without selling your soul. And that's what makes them squirm. Because they begged for attention and still feel unseen. You moved with purpose, and now you're irreplaceable. The crown fits you, not because you took it from them, but because you never needed theirs to begin with. Now they ask for access, ask for advice, try to align, but you're not chasing approval anymore. You own the lane they once said didn't exist. You didn't just win. You rewrote the rules, and they'll spend years trying to figure out how you did it, while standing outside the doors that only open for the builder. Number 11. They thought you'd collapse without them, but that was just the beginning. They thought walking away would end you, but all it did was clear the runway for your rise. They really believed their absence would wreck you, that when they cut ties, you'd spiral, that their silence, their exit, their betrayal would be the thing that finally broke you. They thought you were leaning on them so hard that when they walked, you'd crumble. But what they didn't know is, you weren't leaning, you were lifting, and when they left, you didn't collapse. You caught your breath. Their exit didn't destroy you. It detoxed you. It pulled the weight off your chest. It made space. It cleared the noise. You realized their presence was never support. It was just distraction dressed as loyalty. When they walked away, they thought they were ending something. But they were removing themselves from the miracle in motion. You stopped begging, you stopped explaining, you stopped bleeding for people who left you to bandage yourself. And in that silence, in that space, you didn't break, you ignited. You found fire in the ashes they thought would bury you. You rose with no backup, no applause, no safety net, just grit, just soul, just a burning clarity that said, "This time, it's all on me, and I'm enough." They don't even realize what they walked away from. They thought they were leaving a mess. They walked away from a masterpiece in progress. And now, they watch from a distance, confused, regretful, wondering how the person they left behind became the version of you that commands respect, energy, and space. You were just getting started. They wanted to be your finish line, but you made them your starting gun. They lit the match, thinking it would destroy you, but it lit your fuse. So let them pretend they were the prize. Let them act like they were the ones who let go. The truth? They walked away from greatness in early stages. They abandoned someone who was about to explode. Now the only thing breaking is their pride, because you didn't fall apart. You leveled up, and you did it alone. And now they're not just watching your glow up. They're haunted by the fact that they had a front row seat to something eternal and walked out early. Number 12. You didn't scream your win, but the silence said it all. You didn't need a mic drop. You became the mic. Now every step you take echoes louder than their empty noise ever did. No flashy post, no look at me moment, no viral clip announcing your arrival, just quiet, consistent, relentless work. While they showed off highlights, you stayed behind the scenes doing the hard stuff. No claps, no trophies, just progress. They didn't notice at first. You weren't loud enough for their shallow radar. You didn't move with ego. You moved with intention. You didn't need applause. You needed clarity. You needed direction, not distraction. Growth, not gimmicks. And now, that quiet transformation is roaring in places they swore you'd never reach. Your name is being spoken in rooms you didn't even know existed, not because you demanded it, but because you earned it. Your results speak fluently now, and they speak in a tone that can't be faked. Undeniable. You didn't come for revenge. You came for elevation, and you took every insult, every doubt, every laugh, and turned it into resonance. No announcement needed. You became the message. 15. And now, look at you. Not broken, not bitter, but built. Every betrayal, a brick. Every silent night, a sharpening. Every "you'll never make it" became oxygen in your next breath. You were dragged through hell with nothing but vision in your chest, and still came out walking like royalty. They were sure you'd quit, positive you'd stay down. But here you are, still standing, still rising, still here, unapologetically. And the best part? You carry no hate. You don't even need to speak on it. Your presence now does the humbling. Every time you show up, they remember the jokes, the gossip, the moments they thought you were finished. Let them talk. Let them spin. Let them sit in the awkward silence of your glow-up. Because what they laughed at, what they dismissed, what they walked away from, was legendary in the making. And now you are everything they said you'd never be. And now here we are, at the part they never saw coming, but you always knew was possible. You didn't just survive the storms, they built you. You didn't just silence the doubters, you outgrew the entire conversation. You've risen from the shadows they left you in, not with noise, but with undeniable presence. The version of you standing here now, it's not bitter, it's boundless. Not loud, but legendary. You turned every never into a chapter of your comeback story. So let them sit in confusion while you walk in clarity. Let them whisper while you move the room without saying a word. Because you didn't come to prove them wrong. You came to prove yourself right. If this message lit something inside you, hit that like button, subscribe, and drop 77 in the comments if you're claiming your rise and owning your silence to strength journey. And if you know someone who's being counted out right now, share this with them. Let them know their story isn't over, it's just getting started. Because the real ones, they rise when no one's watching and return when no one can look away.